Okay, hello everybody. So for this month's Fearless Fridays, I am super excited to have Kelly Roach. Kelly is my own coach actually, and I was so thrilled when she said yes, when she could share her story. I've heard it so many times and I think it's such a great one. And Kelly, you're doing so well, so I thought it was the perfect story to share with the community. So really happy to have you here, and I'd love to dive straight in and ask you if you could introduce yourself as you do so beautifully yourself, and what you were doing before in your corporate world and what you're doing so well now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm excited to be here for Fearless Fridays with you, Anna. It's
Thank
so
you.
awesome to get to actually be on shows of my own clients. So excited to be here. And as you know, Anna, I'm a business growth strategist and a peak performance coach. And what I do is I help entrepreneurs and business leaders around the world make 6 and 7 figure leaps in their business. And my goal is to do that through systems and building a strategic team so that they're able to accomplish their goals without compromising their quality of life, their health, or their sanity along the way. So we should be able to have some fun today.
Yes, love that. And I so believe in that as well. So I, of course, love what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I'd love to go back to it. I know it was some time for you, but what was you didn't say there actually, what were you doing before? So what were you doing in your corporate world?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's dig into that a little bit.
Sure. So I started off doing sales and recruiting for a
Mhm.
Fortune 500 firm and really worked my way up the corporate ladder extremely quickly. I was promoted 7 times in 8 years. So I became the youngest senior vice president in the company, and I was managing 17 branches. I had a team of 100 people. And really, what I was doing was a lot of what I do today, just in a different beast, in a different format. I was responsible for driving sales growth. So my whole job was teaching, training, coaching, and developing people to, one, believe in themselves, two, have the confidence, and three, have the skills to go out and sell and market and build their business. And so when I started my own business, I really took the best of what I loved so much and was so passionate about in that field, and really, channeled my energy into something that I felt was much more impactful and fulfilling to make a difference in the world, which is focusing on small business owners.
Mhm.
Because for me, it's very fulfilling when a business owner says, I was able to pay off my debt. I was able to, quit my job. I was able to pay to take my family on vacation. One of my favorite success stories ever was when a client told me that after their first, 6 months working with me, it was the first time ever that they got to pay for all of their Christmas presents with cash.
Oh,
So
amazing.
like it's little things like that, that's why I decided to do what I do, because I know today that every business owner that I help, it's a family that I'm touching, and it's a relationship that I'm reinforcing because of that person now being able to have the freedom and flexibility to put their family first, which is my most important premise in my business.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter where you are today, whether that's important to you or not, at some point it will be. And so if you start ahead and you start working on that when you don't need it, which is exactly what I did. I wasn't, pregnant with Madison yet. I didn't
Mhm.
have, a daughter, and, but I was planning ahead for that when I started my business, because I knew that by the time she got to be the age that she was interacting and kind of knew what was happening in life, that I wanted to be a really present mom. And
Mhm.
so, that's that when you plan ahead and you work towards your dream and you set goals for yourself, you can make anything possible.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And it sounds like you've thought that through, or at this time you really thought intentionally with what you wanted to do. Was there a moment at which you decided now is the time? And can you talk us through what it was that drove you to really make that decision to leave the corporate world?
Yeah, the biggest thing was honestly quality of life.
Hmm.
What I realized in getting 7 promotions in 8 years, which was my goal, and I really made the decision to go in early and stay late and work on the weekends. I didn't have to do that,
Hmm.
but I wanted to achieve that goal. But at the same time, what I realized was if I stayed in a corporate capacity, which is a completely different beast, as everyone knows, than the entrepreneurial world. When you're building your own business, you build a team and you keep adding to that team. So you're able to leverage your time. So I don't work any more in my business today than I did when I was a startup. And we've grown obviously substantially. But the difference is in the corporate world, every time you get a promotion, every time you take on more, you're expected to just work more and more and more and more hours.
Hmm.
There's no correlation. You're not actually building something that's scalable or that will allow you to then later reap the benefit and the reward of that. And so to me, that was like a very short term way of operating. And I was like, this doesn't even make sense. I'm not actually creating something that down the road I'm going to be able to leverage. And that's why I was like, okay, I can keep getting promoted, but I keep having less and less time. So even though I'm making more money, I'm not accomplishing these things. And it was really just coming to like a precipice of realizing like my three values were freedom, fulfillment, and financial abundance. And I really had to do some reflection, and I recognized that that is not available or possible in a corporate environment, especially in a Fortune 500 firm. And you really can't expect that, in a job. I think you have to take responsibility, to go out and create that. Now, what I will say is that I have worked very, very hard in my own business to make sure that my team members are able to accomplish those three things: freedom, financial abundance, and fulfillment in their work. And so I do think it's possible, but I think it's very rare, because you would have to have a business owner or a business leader that has that mindset of wanting to create that. In most companies or corporations, that's not that's not a priority, right? That's not something that's like on their radar to create for people,
No, so true. And I love that you sort of walk the talk there with your team as well. And also that you've been able to, and you say this a lot, that you haven't worked into the ground, because there's so much of this sort of social media stuff that you have to hustle. You have to either compromise on your health and just work even harder as an entrepreneur, or compromise on the money that you're making. And you're proving that it's possible to have that financial abundance without compromising on your family and your health, which is what we're all hoping for, I think, or working towards.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the biggest thing, Anna, and I'm writing my second book right now, and my entire book is focused on this. There's really only two ways of building your business. You can run yourself in the ground and you can try to do it all and be it all, or you can focus, as I have since day one, on team. Because when you build a winning team, not only, so many of the things that you hear about that are the bad parts of entrepreneurship are things that we are in control of. Like the reason why those struggles are there is that we set in motion something that we actually didn't like or didn't align with what we were trying to create. So, I think there's two ways of building your business. There's the destined for burnout, right, path. And then there's the scalable team path. And the scalable team path is much harder. It is. It's much harder because you have to have patience. You have to be willing to take the risk to invest in paying people salaries as you grow. You have to invest so heavily in other people's success and not just be focused on your own. So it's definitely not the fun, sexy, easy way of doing things, but it's definitely the way that you can really, truly experience what entrepreneurial freedom is all about and create something that's going to stand the test of time, which to me, I think that's what we all need to be thinking about every single day. Am I creating something for today or for today and tomorrow, or am I creating something for 10, 15, 25 years from now?
Absolutely. And you mentioned, of course, that you've worked hard and that is sort of the harder route, but it's the longer term. What have been the biggest challenges for you in particular, I guess, at the early stages of the transition, but also in these past years for you? What have been the hardest blocks or challenges for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just well, let me back up. I think the hardest thing for me to learn as an entrepreneur is a willingness to fail publicly. That is very, very difficult, especially when you're high D, type A, high achiever, which I know probably you are and so many other people listening, right? It's very difficult to fail publicly. And so that's what holds most entrepreneurs back from achieving true success, because unfortunately, now with everything being done on social, you're going to win or lose in front of everyone. You're on a grand stage with everything that you do. I mean, I've had completely failed launches where I literally sold nothing. I've had webinars where I've had no one show up. I've had every failure that you could imagine as an entrepreneur. And it was really my willingness to say, okay, this is my starting point, and now I'm going to do this over and over and over again until I nail it, and be willing to fail publicly so that we could succeed and achieve greatness. That was the hardest thing for me. It was so difficult to do that. And even now it's hard. You always it's hard being in the public eye with everything that you do. But I think it's you have to decide what's more important to you, protecting your ego or achieving the end result that you want. Right. And so for me, I'm okay, remember the end end result, like keep focused on your path. And I think the other thing is in every other facet of life, we understand that you'll have to practice and practice and work towards things for years. But then I think in entrepreneurship, we expect that like the first time we do something, like it's going to be this magically perfect result. And then when it's not, we're like, oh, that didn't work. Let me go focus over here, which is like the worst thing you can possibly do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the ego is definitely a big one. I think it takes time to break that down.
It's tough. Yeah.
And I remember actually before I started working with you, I think I heard you talk about the fact that you'd done 10, 11 webinars or so to really sort of crack how it would work. And I'd done one and I did actually get a client out of it. So it was pretty successful, but still it was sort of like, that's it. I've done my webinar. Ta-da. But it's sort of the first tiny little step.
Yeah, I see that so much. And so like my biggest message of 2018 for entrepreneurs is play the long game and you will be the only person leading in your industry because everyone's playing a short game right now. So if you're the person that's thinking about 5, 10, 15 years from now, the decisions that you are making, the caliber of your decisions will be 100 times more powerful than the decisions that your peers are making. And literally like the cream always rises to the top. You may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling. I'm scraping by right now. I'm barely able to get a client. But if you're making good decisions every single day, that will ultimately translate into you being the leader in your industry. You may not be able to see it in this moment because it's just like the iceberg, right? You may, above the surface, you may see, oh my God, I'm barely closing a client a month. I am struggling. But below the surface, you're creating this ecosystem, right? You're creating this energy around your brand. You're creating this value and this worth for people. And you're creating this community in this audience. And that stuff that's below the surface that isn't showing right now, that is the power of a snowball that compounds and compounds and compounds and builds those huge multi-million-dollar businesses that you see.
Yeah. And we don't see the results of what we're doing until months later, right? So it can be quite difficult when people are starting out to keep going, keep the motivation and energy up even when they're not seeing the immediate sales coming in.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Great. And this lesson, how did you learn that? I mean, where did you get the support through, again, initially the early stages, but also now, where do you get your support throughout this process?
Yeah, I mean, I've had lots of coaches and mentors myself. I always tell the story of the best decision I ever made when I started my business was I started business coaching with Allie Brown a year before I started my business.
Okay, wow.
That's how
unusual,
much I believe in coaching, in the power of coaching, because I literally was like, I can cut 5 to 10 years off of my progress by just doing it the right way the first time instead of just trying to make it up as I go. And I had a background in business growth strategy and in sales. And I still knew that there were immense differences between, for example, running an online business and running an offline business. And so, I mean, I can't even convey the value in finding someone that's where you want to be and investing in coaching and training with them, because I still, to this day, utilize so many of the things that I learned from Allie Brown in 2012. I mean, that's how powerful making those right strategic investments are in coaches and coaching.
I think that's very smart and emotionally intelligent of you, because most people I see wait until they've struggled, failed to do it themselves, and then they get help, right? So the fact that you did that a year before you started is amazing. I think that's unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the biggest thing I would say is that you don't have to go through that pain of going at it alone. I hear from people all the time, like entrepreneurship, you feel like you're on an island, you feel lonely. Well, if you build a team and you get a coach, then you're in a community and you have people that are rallied around you, all working towards a common goal. I never feel alone. I can say that I never feel alone. And no one needs to feel alone. It's just but the decisions that you make will determine if you're on an island or if you're in the center of this community with people having their arms wrapped around you.
Yeah. And again, I think that's hard for us when we're starting out, certainly the people I work with, because we're a lot of solopreneurs and sort of freelancers and you're starting quite small. So the idea of building a team and thinking that big and long term is quite scary. I think it's quite difficult to do that so early on.
Yeah. What I always tell people, I share this story over and over again. I started off with a VA for 1 hour a week. And that was the start of my team. So I think it's very intimidating for people to hear team because they're thinking, of investing $50,000 in a full-time person
Yes,
or
yeah.
pounds or whatever, you know what I mean? And, yes, that is the ideal and that's where you want to get eventually, but that's not where you're going to start. That's not where anybody starts. Just get started with like some small incremental amount of help to help you focus on the right things so that you're not getting drugged back and drugged down into the things that you should not be spending your time and energy on.
Yeah, hard learned lesson. I started with them outsourcing little things as well to, websites like Fiverr and Upwork and 99 Designs has always been a good start as well to ease into it. So you don't, as you say, have to hire a full team right away.
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
And what would you say is the best part of your business and lifestyle right now?
Everything. I mean, I would say, I'm at a stage now where, years of making good decisions, years of planning in advance have come to fruition. So, I mean, the ability to have my husband home full time with my daughter, which was the number one most important thing in my life. I retired my husband so that Madison never had to go in daycare. That's my most proud accomplishment. Being completely debt free. Last year we paid off our house. We have no any debt of any kind. Getting to take a lot of family vacations, spend quality time together, put my family first. Last summer I took every Friday off. This summer we're doing a lot of more like trips, like actual trips because Madison's older and we can travel now. So, I mean, I just think that after a period of years of doing the right thing and doing the right thing and doing the right thing, even when I wasn't getting the results from it, it comes full circle. And like, that's my message for everyone. Like, you have to remember the iceberg. If you're doing the right things, you have to keep doing them. That doesn't mean you do them poorly and continue. You have to keep improving every single day, but you have to remember the iceberg. What you're seeing today is a reflection of today. It's not a reflection of the work that you're doing today that's going to show 6 months, a year from now. And you have to be thinking and planning that way because most people quit before they ever see any results because they're measuring the value of what they're doing in the results that they have today. But that's not how results translate. Sometimes it doesn't show for 6 months. Sometimes it doesn't show for a year. Sometimes it takes 2-3 years. You know what I mean? So you have to be playing that long game. It's so, so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you've already shared, that included a lot of amazing advice there, but if you could choose one piece of advice that you'd share for someone who's just starting out, what would that advice be for them?
My biggest piece of advice for new entrepreneurs today is to focus on engagement-based video. That was not available when I started my business. There was no such thing as live streaming, and Instagram wasn't even a thing at that point. So I would say, that is the best business breakthrough that's happened in the past decade, and it's free. And so if you're a new entrepreneur starting today, you need to make your phone your best friend. I have a little visitor that just popped in my office. Excuse me. You need to make your phone your best friend and get on camera. Get on your camera. That is the biggest piece of advice I have for new entrepreneurs. It wasn't available to me. Now with my second business that I'm just starting, everything we're doing is engagement-based video. We're live streaming every week. We're doing boomerangs. We're doing, what are they called? Stories, those things. And we're seeing our audience grow faster there than my audience grow in my coaching company. And it's because we're leveraging the tools and technologies that are available today that weren't available when I started my first business. So,
that's great advice. And just the fact that, I was just saying to you before we went on recording, I see you so much because I see your live videos and I listen to your podcast and I watch your things. So even before working with you, I felt like I knew you already. And it's such a great way to get to know the person you're going to be working with and so on. So absolutely. That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, it's great.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for Madison for joining as well. Could you share where we can find out more about you, where we can watch your amazing lives and so on and find out about your coaching and consulting?
Oh, thank you, Anna. Yeah, so definitely go to Kelly Roach International on Facebook. We live stream every single week. Even if you scroll through the back feed, you will find absolute gold there. I have people tell me that the live streams are more valuable than programs that they've paid for. So hit up Kelly Roach International, send me your questions or topics, and we'll do a live stream for you. And Unstoppable Success Radio. So check out the podcast. It's all about helping entrepreneurs grow their business faster and achieve their goals.
Yes, love that. And I also recommend that people go back there into the archive and listen to all of them. I've listened to most of them, I have to say. So it's a great library of resources as well.
Thank you, Anna.
Great. Thanks so much, Kelly. Thank you for your time and for sharing your great wisdom with us all. So thanks so much.
Yes, I'm so happy to be a part of it. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.